the verse effect. It's the verse effect. It's the verse effect. I write the lyrics to change the game. Nothing's ever gonna be the same. It's the verse effect. 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 I write the lyrics to change the game. Nothing's ever gonna be the same.
Welcome back to The Verse Effect. I'm Camille, and today we're taking on a track that isn't just important to hip-hop, it's foundational. We're looking at the Notorious B.I.G's Juicy, a record that turned one man's autobiography into a cultural touchpoint.
Yeah, this one hits a little different. It's not a fantasy, it's not a performance piece. This is Biggie opening the door and letting you see exactly where he came from. The memories, the struggle, the tiny victories, the big disbelief. All of it.
And it's fascinating how he frames the whole story. He doesn't start with success. He starts with nostalgia. That choice alone sets the tone for the entire record. So today we're going to walk through the lines that shape the way people understand this song.
And quick note before we get rolling. As always, we'll be quoting and discussing explicit lyrics in their original context. So, if you're listening around younger ears, or you prefer the clean versions, just be aware. Camille, before we even get rolling, you know I had to pull out the old word up issues for this one.
Of course you did. I can just picture you, 13, hunched over, flipping through glossy pages, thinking, maybe one day that could be me. But honestly, that's the magic of Biggie's opening. It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. He doesn't just start with flexing or violence. He goes straight for nostalgia, for memory. It's vulnerable. It's cinematic.
Absolutely. And I mean, Word Up wasn't just about music. Those magazines, they were lifelines for a lot of us, especially if you didn't see yourself on MTV or in the local paper. You'd pin those posters on the wall and feel connected, like maybe hip-hop belonged to you too. For Biggie to say he used to read it, it tells you he was a fan first, just like the rest of us. That line puts him in the tradition of the culture, not above it.
Right, and even deeper, he's locating himself at the start of a new era. You think about the late 80s, early 90s, you had magazines like Right On, and The Source starting to really tell hip-hop's story from the inside out. By opening with It Was All a Dream, Biggie sets up the whole track as a kind of testimony. It's, what's that word you always use, Roderick? Relatable? Humanizing?
I do throw those words around, but it's true. No matter how wild things got by the end of his verse, he started with himself as a kid with dreams. And, not to rant out the gate, but that's something a lot of early critics missed. They thought braggadocio was just about ego, when really, it's aspiration. Biggie was showing that street realism and dreaming big aren't mutually exclusive.
Exactly. And his style, so conversational, so vivid. That's Puff's influence too, making something glossy out of gritty. But beneath the polish, it's that rags to riches autobiography. He's narrating the journey not just for himself, but for everyone who ever stared at magazine covers, dreaming they'd make it. Should we talk about how it gets even bigger from here?
Yeah, let's get into that next line. Remember Rappin' Duke? Doha, doha. You never thought that hip-hop would take it this far. Now hold up. Am I the only one who cracks up every time I hear that Rappin' Duke reference? Man, if you know, you know.
It's one of those inside jokes. If you're old enough, yes, you remember Rappin' Duke with that deep, goofy doha. But what he's really saying, apart from clowning a little, is, look at what hip-hop was, and look at what it's become. He's giving us the whole context. The genre went from novelty records to suddenly people like Biggie selling out shows, topping charts, and being interviewed by major media. He's both amazed and a little bit like, told you so.
And it's not just about himself. He's speaking to those doubters, people who didn't believe in him, sure, but also the entire world who didn't believe hip-hop could go mainstream. You gotta remember, by 1994, hip-hop had some breakthroughs. Run DMC, LL, Public Enemy, and still, it was seen as just this street thing, not something that would ever really last.
Right. It's not only his story, it's the genre's thesis statement. Like Juicy is him saying, our wildest dreams came true, and I'm living it, but also, we're living it. There's a sense of shared victory. Even in the flow, he's a little self-aware, not just selling a fantasy. He's rooted in the culture, documenting a turning point, broadening the song from autobiography to cultural statement.
It feels almost historic, like he's archiving hip-hop's come up, putting it on record for future doubters. And it's interesting, because, like we talked about in the Nas episode, lyricists are documentarians in a way. Big's contribution? He's proof that this thing called hip-hop ain't just art, it's power, it's currency. You never thought it would take it this far. Man, that's the line that gave every dreamer a little more hope.
Now let's get into the next couplet, which, can we just say, might be one of hip-hop's best examples of compact storytelling. I made the change from a common thief to up close and personal with Robin Leach. That hits so hard, right?
Oh, totally. But Camille, every time I hear Robin Leach, I get this flash of the old TV in my dad's store. Saturday evenings. Lifestyles of the rich and famous, playing while I'm stacking records. That show was basically fantasy camp for anyone outside the world of yachts and country estates. For Biggie to say he's now up there with Leach, shoot, it's like a kid from the block suddenly rubbing elbows with royalty.
Exactly. For black and brown kids, lifestyles was, what's the term, aspirational but also kind of abstract. Most of us never expected to appear in that world. So when Biggie flips his own common thief past and pairs it with being hospitality buddies with Robin Leach, it's more than a punchline. It's a point of pride. He's crossing an invisible line. It's a sly way of saying, I crashed the gates.
And on a style level, man, it's that blend. Biggie's always got the duality, the street grit and the glamour, the criminal past and the polished future. To me, that's what gave rise to the whole mafioso rap thing later, where you could rap about secret handshakes and caviar, but still reference the struggle. He never left the details of poverty behind. He made it cool to own both sides.
That blueprint, mixing pop culture punchlines, brutal honesty, and fantasy, set the tone for so many that came after. And the bad boy approach? Make it shiny, but make sure the hunger and danger are never too far in the rear view. Really, when you look beneath the surface, it's a masterclass in how to tell the story of transformation without losing your authenticity.
And speaking of authenticity, let's talk about the spread love, it's the Brooklyn way line. Because, look, that line is almost a brand, right? I'm not even from Brooklyn and it's stuck in my head. But that bar, people forget how much love was embedded in those neighborhoods, even with all the hard times.
It's almost like a code, or hang on, what's the best analogy? It's like for all the smoke, the hustling, the everyday struggles, there's this ethic. Always show love, look out for your people. Even in the midst of violence or poverty, spread love is a radical refrain. And by calling it the Brooklyn way, Biggie rebrands Brooklyn, not just tough or dangerous, but generous, loyal, and communal.
Right? And you gotta remember, in the early 90s, those New York borough identities ran deep. Brooklyn always had that street rep, but Big made it feel warm, even a little funny sometimes. He's giving people a motto, one that his whole crew, his whole label could rally around. It's genius branding, but it's also deeply genuine.
Exactly. Spread love became something bigger, a kind of kindness that's gritty, rooted. That's what sets Juicy apart from just another success anthem. It's personal but communal. Like if one of us shines, we all shine. The Junior Mafia, the neighborhood, they're all part of the glow up. Over time, that line almost became a mission statement for Brooklyn hip-hop in general. Human, messy, but always with that love showing through. All right, so if spread love is the motto, birthdays was the worst days, now we sip champagne when we Thursday, that's the emotional climax, right? He's telling you, I had nothing, not even a decent birthday, and now I drink champagne just because I want to, not for a special occasion. Nobody paints that contrast like Biggie.
That line has always stuck with me. Birthdays as a measure for poverty. Like, if there's any day in the year a kid should feel special, it's then. And if even that's bleak, you can almost picture how rough the rest of the year was. He doesn't add drama or extra sauce. He just tells it plain, which somehow makes it hit even harder. From negative to positive, that's like the thesis of the whole song, and low-key, the blueprint for so many rappers after him.
Right, and it's also such a quotable, repeatable mantra. You hear it as motivation, endorsements, Instagram captions everywhere. It condenses pain, transformation, resilience, without indulging in trauma for the sake of shock value. He's honest without self-pity. That's what makes it so universal, I think. More than just his story, he's giving people a script for their own glow-up. And that structure, specific struggle, breakthrough, flex, and then gratitude, became a model for so much of what came after in hip-hop storytelling.
You said it, Camille. Every time a new artist shouts out their come-up or flips a struggle to celebration, Juicy is somewhere in the DNA. If you ever needed proof that vulnerability could exist in rap alongside bravado, Biggie served it in one couplet, neat. So we've been through the lines, the looks, the local shout-outs, and we're left with this. Juicy isn't just one man's origin story. It's a blueprint. It's how you tell people. Where you come from can limit your options, but not your imagination. That track, and Biggie in general, made it possible for so many to believe. Maybe if he could do it, so could they.
Yes, and musically, culturally, Juicy helped pull East Coast rap right back into the pop mainstream, but without watering anything down. Those phrases, it was all a dream, from negative to positive, spread love, they escaped the song. They're woven into the language of hip-hop itself, and beyond. I mean, how many graduation speeches or street murals quote Biggie now? He made his story everybody's aspiration, not just his own fantasy fulfilled.
Yeah, that reach is massive. And connecting to what we've talked about in past episodes, like Common using metaphor for critique, or Nas as the neighborhood archivist, Biggie's biggest impact was storytelling as an act of hope. He set the bar for origin story rap. Honest, aspirational, unafraid to flex, but always rooted in real struggle.
Decades later, Juicy still gives artists that framework to tell their truths, dream bigger, and invite folks along for the ride. That kind of legacy. We'll be unpacking it for a long, long time. I'm glad we got to explore it together today, Roderick.
You know, every time I revisit this track, I'm reminded how deliberate Biggie was. Nothing in Juicy is accidental. He's not just celebrating success, he's documenting the distance between who he was and who he became.
Exactly. And he does it without erasing the hardships that shaped him. The song holds both gratitude and memory at the same time, which is why it resonates far beyond 1994. It's a story about transformation, but it's also about recognition.
And the reason it still moves people is because it feels honest. Not polished for image, not exaggerated for effect. Just a man laying out the truth of his life and inviting you to see yourself somewhere in that arc.
That's the legacy of Juicy. It set a standard for autobiographical hip-hop, accessible, reflective, and deeply human.
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of The Verse Effect. As always, thank you for listening, thank you for supporting, and feel free to send us the next track you want broken down. Like, subscribe, and come back for the next one.
We'll see you next time.
It's the verse effect, it's the verse effect. I write the lyrics that change the game. Nothing's ever gonna be the same. Nothing's ever gonna be the same. I write the lyrics that change the game. Nothing's ever gonna be the same. Nothing's ever gonna be the same.